Author turned writer turned director Alex Garland just knows how to tell a good story. He first caught my attention with his directorial debut Ex Machina, a compelling exploration of humanity and artificial intelligence, and from there on out continued to tell great human stories which explore ambitious ideas in unique and inventive ways. Whether it's his underrated limited series Des, which explored the idea of whether or not free will was even a thing, and his folk horror film Men, admittedly polarizing film which I personally love, if only because of Jesse Buckley and Rory Kinnear's fantastic performances. Of all his directorial efforts, the only one that didn't entirely work for me was Annihilation, and even that movie contains one of the most stunning audiovisual portrayals of an alien life form that I've ever seen. So overall, pretty good batting average. Suffice to say, I was excited for Civil War, set in an alternate reality where a third-term president, played by Nick Offerman, has led to the eruption of the second Civil War in America's history. Across the war-torn nation of America, a group of war journalists led by Kirsten Dunst, Kaylee Spaney, Wagner Moura, and Stephen McKinley Henderson travel to the White House in order to get an interview with the president. If I had one concern about the film going in, it was just how grounded it was. That's not to say I have any vendetta against grounded stories, but I've never seen just how Garland would fare with such material, as his greatest strength as a director has always been his ability to explore real life ideas through the lens of the sci-fi and supernatural. But if Civil War proves anything, it's that Garland's storytelling ability transcends any genre limitations, with the director delivering his best and most compelling work since Ex Machina. Like many of Garland's work, it's quite polarizing, and a lot of people seem to be disappointed with the fact this movie delves less into politics and more into war journalism, which I have no problem with, not only because I'm a journalism major, but because this movie is an important reminder to take and judge a movie based on its own terms. It's fine to watch a trailer and speculate on what the themes of a movie will be, but it's important to leave those expectations at the door, step inside, and judge a movie on the merits of what it sets out to do. And for a tense, uncomfortable portrait of a group of journalists traversing a dangerous war-ridden land, it's absolutely brilliant, and a lot of that is to do with the sound design. There's a cliche that the Oscar for Best Sound Editing often goes to the movie with the loudest sound editing, with last year's The Zone of Interest being a rare example of otherwise, but this movie thrives in the way it contrasts that quietness and loudness. This is an intense film, and the sound works not solely because it's loud, but because the harsh loudness of a gunshot or an explosion punctures moments of silence, which imbues the sound with an incredibly abrupt and unpredictable quality. You never know when a grenade is about to be set off, and when it does, you can almost physically feel the impact because of the quietness that precedes it. In fact, there's a brilliant moment of sound design early on in the film where the movie strips away all sound for what felt like 2 minutes, and what this does is provide us with a baseline that makes everything else in the film sound just that much louder. The contrast between the quiet and loud is observable throughout the entire film's structure. Though this movie has been described as a war movie and an action film, I would best describe it as a road movie. So in the midst of the intense, nail-biting action sequences, we're treated to moments of relative stillness, where we follow the leads as they drive from one place to another or even stop to fill up gas. Though the action sequences are the most thrilling parts of the film, it's the in-between moments that create the emotional centerpiece, establishing the dynamics between the characters so that we fear even more for their well-being. The most prominent dynamic is the one between Kirsten Dunst Lee, an acclaimed experienced war journalist, and Jesse, a less experienced but ambitious young photographer who admires Dunst's work. This is my favorite performance from Dunst, but it's Kaylee Spaney who continues to blow me away, and the one that I most identified with as an audience member. Because she's the least experienced of the group, this is her first time being on the front line, boots to the ground, experiencing combat and murder, and I can imagine that's the perspective that most audience members can relate to. And because of that, I would say she's the most essential ingredient of all the lead journalists, all of who do a fantastic job. Stephen McKinley Henderson has been described by his co-stars as being the glue of the cast, and I would say he very much feels like that even within the context of the movie. The dude just has a paternal quality to him that makes him feel like a father figure. Yet despite appearing for less than 10 minutes, the most effective performance comes from Jesse Plemons, playing arguably his most psychotic role since he broke into the scene as Todd in Breaking Bad. Even if you thought his character was chilling enough in the trailer, you still won't be ready for just how tense he'll make you feel in the theater. It's impossible to heap praise onto this film without discussing the wonderful work done by cinematographer Rob Hardy, a frequent collaborator of Garland. Not only are all the shots incredibly well composed from a framing and blocking standpoint, the movie masterfully toes the line between feeling incredibly cinematic while predominantly populating the screen with warm earthly colors to accomplish a grounded, almost documentary visual aesthetic. The movie will often cut to photographs taken by the journalists in the middle of a scene, and those shots are edited to perfection so that they never overstay their welcome. Alex Garland said he wanted to make a truly anti-war film and cited Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now as an example of a movie that feigns being anti-war but isn't truly anti-war because of how seductive the horror can be. And while I understand his sentiment, I don't think that's a fair assessment, and if it were, it's one that would honestly reflect badly on his own movie. Because there are a lot of shots in this movie, such as a top-down image of a girl laying over a pile of dead bodies, which are absolutely horrific while being undeniably brilliantly framed from a craftsmanship angle, and one can be seduced by the expertise of a certain shot without reveling in or undermining in the horrors that it portrays. Civil War is so effective, beautifully shot, incredibly well edited, and well crafted that I find it hard to fault, but there is one moment in the film where Garland required a character to be separated from the rest of the group, and the way in which he accomplished that was incredibly contrived. The entire time you're watching it, you're thinking to yourself, yup, this entire scene is an obvious setup of characters making a bunch of stupid decisions, made even more egregious by the film's random introduction of two new characters who are partly introduced just to facilitate the characters' stupidities. That's about my only gripe with the film, and I think the people who are criticizing it for not being enough of an intellectual political experience are doing a disservice to how well this movie works on an emotional level, as a disturbing, uncomfortable portrait of the reality that exists not only for war journalists, but for any nation embroiled in war and slaughter. And maybe this is an instance of Garland's intellectual filmmaker reputation working against him, because I certainly think this is his most emotionally effective film yet. And for that, I give it a 9 out of 10. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the subscribe button and give a like. And if you've had the chance to see Civil War, let us know what you thought about it in the comments below. I'm Cinemike, and I'll see you next time.